Hi there, welcome to Tim Hare Day and to this very special two-part video of a slideshow presentation put together by some friends and myself in the community on the subject of birdsong. This will feature photographs, videos and sounds from all my travels in the UK, plus some poetry read by my co-hosts. So wherever you are in the world, make yourselves comfortable, sit back, relax and enjoy the show. Okay, well hopefully if everyone can see this slide and the correct one to start us off, just a quick thumbs up if you can see the title card that's in front of you, A Year in Birdsong. Excellent, all right, fantastic, all right. Well, yes, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you who have come and joined and participated. Yes, this is A Year in Birdsong. Now, for those of you who don't know me, all right, my name is Tim Thorne, and I am an amateur ecologist, ornithologist, and a wildlife cameraman who has spent the last 5 years traveling the length, width of the British Isles in pursuit of the British Isles' marvellous nature wonders. But the theme of this talk is going to focus on the concept of birdsong and how it is a soundtrack of nature. And we'll be exploring the very best of the seasons and many of its isles where these birds can be found. So to give some context of how I go about my travels, this is generally how I look here. You can see that I carry a very long lens camera, but in addition, I also bring some shorter lenses for the different ranges and the different scenes I go to. It's not a necessity, but I do a lot of the time wear camouflage clothing and is rather stereotypical, as you can imagine. But there is purpose for it as well, because there are often a number of places I go where one must try and blend in and also keep still in the surroundings. And the theory is that when you wear clothing like this and keep still, you're less likely to disturb the subject that you pursue. And also, in addition to the camera, I also do some sound recordings. On the top right picture, I have a makeshift parabolic from a mere humble kitchen bowl and just attach some gaffer tape, wood plank and some bungee cord to a professional recorder. And and basically, if anyone doesn't know what a parabolic is it's supposed to act like a human ear. The sounds in which I record, the waves from them basically bounce in the bowl and therefore amplify the sound in which I'm focusing on to work like an ear. So, and this is how this is how I've brought about the different pictures, video clips, sound recordings, and also at the end of each segment, there will be a mindful moment video to showcase and celebrate what each season has to bring. But before we start, we need to explore why I'm talking about birdsong. Firstly, what is it? Well, it's defined in the English Oxford Dictionary as musical vocalizations of a bird or birds that are typically uttered by a male songbird in characteristic bursts or phrases, and that is mainly for territorial purposes, but yet they're also used as conversation as well, and principally also to attract mates. And that's very typical of the most common concept of birdsong is a dawn chorus, which one may hear outside their garden in a woodland. You know, they're very common scenes for that. We're also going to be exploring where dawn choruses also occur in other habitats, which brings us on to our next point, which is based on personal experience and an idea slash concept I want to introduce to you all, that birdsong can also be thought as a soundtrack in nature, and like truth, is defined by individual ecosystems, the various ecosystems, and the seasons that happen around them. So to put an analogy to hopefully make sense, if one listens to a piece of music, um, when music is composed, it will be shaped by not only the various genres, but also movements, influences, stories, and also experiences. Um, Now, while they all vary and give sort of different pieces of music, usually to different tastes. The point of that is that whatever those influences are, it thus creates a piece of music that catches your ear. So therefore, birdsong, I believe, can also be thought of in this same kind of manner. And the final point in relation to the second is that birdsong can be found all year round, and also in different locations. You therefore can find birdsong if you know the right places. Um, what I mean, sorry, is that throughout the different times of the year, you can find samples of birdsong if you know the right places to look for them. And my hope is that with what I show you in this slideshow will give you an idea and some inspiration as to what you can find. Unfortunately, there are too many ideas to cram into this slideshow, so I'm going to highlight some particular species that I've noticed through all my times and travels. So let's kick in to the beginning of the year, January to February. Now look at the pictures you've got here. There's snow and quite conveniently a snowman. But perhaps at this time of the year when snow isn't happening quite a lot, the typical landscapes would also include, as you can see on the bottom left and right, trees without leaves. There's also rather overcast sky. There's on average, very little sunshine to be seen. So with scenery like this, it's quite easy to think, well, what possible songs could there be? How can you possibly think that there's going to be any kind of bird song in this scenery? Well, one such example, which we're about to see, gets to work rather early before many of the songbirds are in action. And this bird is the dipper. It's, to me, one of the most extraordinary birds in all our isles to see. It is our only aquatic songbird in the world, and its behavior is, if anyone knows a dipper, it moves bopping up and down, and also it dips rather deeply to catch insects of what is such as caddisfly larvae, which is what this one has. But yes, the point is the song. The song is as this sound file you're about to hear now can be described as a trickle, which is not unlike the brook in which they perch on high rocks to give out their song. So let's have a listen. Yeah, isn't that a lovely sound? I'm just going to take a brief pause because I've noticed a window that looks like I need to just close it down so you don't all see it. It might not be visible to you, but I just need to make sure I'm not seeing it so I don't get distracted. All right, there we go. Hopefully that's a bit more clearer now and you can see the slide. So that's the dipper. Uh, to find this bird, one must need to go to a forest where there are steady brooks and also cliff edges, which is their preferred landscape. And also to give an idea of geographically, their range goes from the West Country, pretty much all of Wales, a small branch of the West Midlands, and also much of Northwest England and Scotland. If you are based in the eastern part of Britain, then you need to come a little further west in order to see dippers. However, um, one may need to go this far west because this next set of birds I'm going to now show, um, here we are. This is the knot migration on the Wash. This is the first of the video clips you're going to see, recorded on a so-called Snettisham Spectacular. So as the name suggests, this was recorded from RSPB Snettisham, and the so-called Spectacular is where mass flocks of waders, and principally not, gather at a particularly high tide at the Wash, when the tide is expected to be at one of its highest points of the year. And when such occasions happen, the birds will flock and fly in mass numbers, performing murmuration-like appearances similar to starlings. And also the sound in which it gives is something to behold. It hears from miles. So here we go. We're going to play it for you now, and hopefully you can see it all. Take a listen in particular to the multiple beeps, which you'll hear from oyster catcher and the knots in between. Apologies if it's a bit blurry, but hopefully you can just see that there are a few logs there trying to do some acrobatics. There we go. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Some have dived into the ocean towards the sea. And look at that. They're all huddling in, trying to find space. What's particularly nice about that is how all those heads just move so closely within as well. It's a marvelous scene. So yeah, Snettisham Spectaculars only occur on set dates of the year, and very few of them as well. One needs to look at the either the tide timetable, or better still, the RSPB gives some dates of when predictions of when spectaculars do happen. So if one wishes to see it, plan your time around said dates, and you'll have a show never to forget, and a soundtrack even never to forget as well. It's one of the most marvelous times of the year, especially in winter when you see multiple numbers. So now, to conclude this segment, we're going to now watch one of my mindful moments. And I forgot to mention earlier that all mindful moment videos you're about to see are films that I have previously published on my YouTube channel. So if anyone's watching this, you can look back on the link below. The first we're going to see is back in February of 2024, and indeed of January, there has been what's called a waxwing phenomenon, in which there have been record numbers of these birds coming so far west and even south into the regions. And one such flock came to Worcester one day. And when you watch this, the distinct sound to listen for is a high-pitched trill. All right. When you're looking for waxwings, listen out for that trill. Here it goes. We are Bohemian waxwings, a very special winter visitor. Yeah, if anyone's been lucky to spot one, yeah, please do comment. But now we must move on because we now enter the spring months. Now, this time of the year is probably the most idealistic season to be thinking about birdsong, and not least for the scenery in which you've got here. We have pictures of flowers, daffodils, which are one of the first flowers you see in March, and also some bluebells, which are a very famous flower in Britain. And also on the top middle there, you can also see some wood anemones, which are a personal favourite of mine. Um, but also included in these photographs, some scenes perhaps one may not immediately think spring, but yet they are just as important as your grasslands and woodlands. There's some reed bed on the bottom left, still brown looking colour. It's not yet got as green as the grass, but no, but that doesn't matter because life progresses very highly in there as much as it does in a woodland. And also on the top right there is a picture of some heather moorland, the scenery you have of the very far north of the British Isles, where there's acidic soil and peat. We'll be exploring what birds take action over there later. But let's kick off and let's show you some highlighted birds that get straight to work at this season. And the first you're about to see is the yellowhammer. Some of you might have already spotted this bird on the cover of this slideshow. This is a farmland bird, which its song is one of the to many birders is one of the most distinct characteristic songs that somehow translated in English is called A Little Bit of Bread and No Cheese, which you hear this in the countryside where there is careful regenerative farmland and hedgerows. We've got a video clip here for you of a male yellowhammer giving out its full song. Here it is. Anyone catch that? Here it goes again. There you go. Little bit of bread and no cheese. Sadly, yellowhammers are a red-listed species. Numbers have declined by rough statistics between 60 and 70% in mainland Britain since the 1950s. But fortunately, some pockets of birds do exist where, as I mentioned before, where there's regenerative farming and careful management of hedgerows. But thankfully, though, the good thing is they are resident all year round in Britain, so they don't migrate in the same way as others. They stay in their preferred habitats. Like our next bird we're going to see, and this is going to be a sound clip because trying to get a video of this bird is so difficult because it's what I describe as a tiger of the reeds. This is the bittern. It's a member of the heron family, and yeah, why have I called it a tiger of the reeds? Well, look at it. Look at where it is. Look at the plumage of it. It is so well camouflaged. So much so that not only do the colors match, but also the lining of the feathers. They match the direction and length of the reeds. Amazingly enough, a bittern will point its head upwards to try and look like it's a reed. But if you can't see one, well, you'll be guaranteed you'll hear one easily. The sound you're about to hear, it gives the loudest call of any bird in Britain. This gives a boom. The sound you're about to hear, a booming sound, not dissimilar to a foghorn. Are you ready for it? One may need to turn down your headphones, possibly, depending on your volume level, but here it goes. Here's a boom. you go. A boom of a bittern can be on a clear, calm day can carry up to a mile in distance. And I mentioned earlier that dawn choruses can exist in other habitats. Well, in a reed bed habitat, a bitten's call will be one of those that joins a chorus of warblers and other wetland birds that make the scenery. And bitterns also, thanks to recent conservation work, have become now a more common and sight to see and hear since the 1990s, where um, in in the last decade of the 20th century, there were only 10 brooming males, mainly to be found in East Anglia. But now their range has extended to the southwest, also to North Wales and northwest England. So notable locations include Ham Wall in the Somerset Levels, also Leighton Moss, Lancashire. They're still commonly heard in locations such as Minsmere and the Norfolk and Suffolk Broads. Yeah, so these days now it is more possible, thanks to these efforts, to hear a booming male bittern. But now we're going to move on to another set of birds that make part of a particular landscape, and these are a selection of springtime waders for which I've provided some sound clips. Now, the sounds I've provided here are what I've recorded on a visit to the Shetland Isles, which, amongst many of my travels I've done in the UK, has never has there been a place to hear so much of these particular sounds here of wader songs. So the first that you're going to hear is the lapwing, located here on the top left. Now, this sound can be thought of as almost like a synthesizer turning the dials. Here, have a listen. The other name is a peewit for this reason. Isn't that marvelous? They do this on the flight as well. Much like the next bird you're about to hear, the curlew. This is the largest of our European waders and and produces one of the most evocative calls. This is described as a bubbling call. All right, here it is. Yeah, apologies for the wind because as often happens when you're in the far North Isles, the wind speed does tend to pick up in open land. But yeah, that's the curlew. It has for many generations inspired poets and in recent years songwriters alike. One such notable example is Mr. David Gray, who is also who also is what's the word? He's also a patron of the charity Curlew Action. So do check that out. And then finally, the next of our waders is the snipe. Now, this sound you're about to hear, which happens in springtime, so the latter of which you're about to hear is called a drumming. They make this noise also on the wing as they flap it, but they also make a noise like a tick-tock. Here it goes. There you go. That's also another sort of electronic synthesizing noise, isn't it? Yeah, most fascinating. And sounds of what you've just heard used to be so common and widespread across much of our countryside. But since the 1960s, the populations of many of these waders have dropped for up to 60% since the 60s and 70s. So thus thus why it's a lot harder while there's development and also intense agriculture, why it's not so easy enough to hear. But fortunately enough, though, sounds like these are still quite in their stronghold in the far north of the British Isles. So their strongholds at present are within the Hebrides, the Highlands, the Orkneys, and of course the Shetlands, of which these sounds were possible. So, and I was mentioning earlier that these are sounds associated with a heather moor or upland countryside. Um, and the next one you're about to hear is also a specialist in upland heather. But to see this and hear it requires an extremely early alarm call. This is a clip you're about to watch of the black grouse lek. Here we are. We'll kick into the video and then I'll explain what this is about. Have a listen. There's a bubbling call it does. Yeah, that is. Yeah. Hopefully you all heard, as well as the sort of gobbling like a turkey noise, there was also a bit of a sharp hiss, it going which is part of their so-called song. But why is it called a lek? Well, it derives from the Old Norse word for play. A lek is basically where male grouse, male game birds, gather to put on a big display, as you just saw there, the fantail bub, the fantail showing off and making a quite a sort of song in its own right to try and attract the attention of a female, whilst also at the same time fend off any other rival males with the same intentions. I mentioned earlier it's a hard one to spot because you need an alarm call of probably around 3 to 4 a.m. Notably in sort of in mid-springtime before the sun has even risen. And the reason for that is you've got to get where there are lek sites, you've got to get to them early enough before the birds actually arrive, and then just wait and see them all come. Because also, by the time the sun has risen, they will have already done their business and will go away and shelter where there's some woodland. Yeah. So grouse again is quite sparse in populations as well. So you're more likely to spot these where there is carefully managed moorland. Let's think of some examples. Um, the Cairngorms still has a stronghold. There's a small population of them in the Pennines, and also in recent years they've the population of black grouse in North Wales, notably between Llangollen and Wrexham, is a notable example of where numbers are actually increasing. So it's yeah, a black grouse lek is definitely for the more adventurous of birders, but worth the effort if you commit to the action. It gives off a soundtrack so unique of this landscape. So before we move on to our next mindful moment, we've got a still picture, and I'd like to introduce Jenny at this point. She's going to share with us a poem. Um, it's called it's called Piper's Wood. All right, by W.F. Harvey. Jenny, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, this is Piper's Wood by F.W. Harvey, who is one of the Gloucestershire poets. Wrote a lot about nature. He also wrote First World War poetry as one of the war poets who came back and carried on writing about nature. Piper's Wood by F.W. Harvey. In Minsterworth, when March is in, and spring begins to gild the days, oh, then starts up a joyous din, For Piper's Wood is full of praise, because the birds deem winter gone and welcome the returning sun. Blackbird and thrush and robin deer within that wood try over all the songs they mean to shout so clear, before green leaves grow red and fall. And hearkening in its shadows, you must needs sing out of summer too.
Beautifully read. Thank you. And this brings us quite appropriately into our mindfulness moment to conclude the segment. We are going to be taking a little look into Wyre Forest. This is located in Worcestershire, and this is a rare example of an ancient, semi-ancient oak woodland. Now, as well as many of our common songbirds, in the mix also are some very specialist songbirds that are only attracted to oak woodland. See how many you can spot and listen out for. But aside from that, just sit back, relax, and immerse yourself. I mentioned earlier that there were some specialist birds attracted to that. Um, they are towards the end, to the middle end of the video. You had pied flycatcher singing. There was a tree pipit, and also at the very end, a redstart. All of these are summer migrants to the UK. They come all the way from Africa, and as I said, they specialize with oak wood. It's their preferred habitat to be in. And of course, the interesting about an oak is that a single oak tree can host over 100 different species of life. Um, so so not least, of course, an oak tree can provide not only lunch but also sustenance for such birds as you see. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of part one. And it also brings us in theory, the halfway through the year. Join us for part two, where now to see what there'll be in the summer months and then back into the colder months. What bird song could you possibly find there? Well, stay tuned.